Charter Local Edition here. Brad Pomerantz at the California State Association of Counties Convention in Palm Springs, California. We are joined by Curt Hagman. He is a supervisor in San Bernardino County, and this region is remembering December 2nd, that tragic day where 14 individuals lost their lives at the hands of two terrorists who ultimately lost their lives. I can't believe it's been a year. I spoke with you right after the incident. Let's take a look back. How are you feeling? How is your county feeling?
Well, obviously, as the date has passed, it's been a lot of remembrance of the
Right.
horror that we had that. The county is doing what we can to support our staff that are
Right.
still living.
Now let's remember that this occurred at a county facility.
Well, it wasn't a county facility, but a county event.
I see. County event where they were having a Christmas party.
Christmas lunch, yes.
And so those that perished were all county staffers.
Yes, there was one that wasn't, but
Okay.
a bystander. But many of the same staff, all for one department, was injured as well.
Right.
So we still have some of those employees who are still out as we speak today.
And what's
emotionally, physically, both injured, and we had to rebuild the whole department.
Right. What's remarkable to me is how the county came together after December 2nd. There were the memorial events at the stadium, 66, I believe it's called, with folks of all faiths coming together, including folks of the Islamic faith. And that was hard because the perpetrators were perpetrating the act in the name of Islam according to themselves, and so.
Yes, no, the whole community rallied around our staff and continuing to do so. And we're still very much recovering. We're still doing practical things as a county too. We're spending resources on security upgrades and looking at all the different aspects to try to keep both our employees and the public who come use our public facilities safe.
So this year has been a tricky one for members of certain ethnic communities, including those of the Islamic faith. The president-elect has spoken out at various points about immigration of Muslims or visitors who happen to be of the Islamic faith. And so I'm wondering, given that San Bernardino has a decent-sized Islamic community, not huge, but you do have mosques. How are you working with your Muslim neighbors? You had December 2nd happen, you have some of the rhetoric that's coming out of Washington, D.C.
For the most part, it's been tough for them. I go to some of their public events where they
Right.
invite me, and it is tough for them. And it's hard to be labeled, any
Right.
group to be labeled under one broad brush. And so that's their biggest message trying to get out is these are individuals, as you have individuals from different religions or different backgrounds doing heinous things, don't paint that broad brush for everyone.
Right, and recently some mosques in this area received some letters that were pretty hateful, invoking the president-elect, which is tricky indeed. Do you feel as if this is a time where we're still continuing to come together in the Inland Empire, or are there glances that are askance?
I think there's a mixture of both.
That's fair.
I think that some people are still trying to hold that unity together for the common good, and others are taking the opportunity because of all the rhetoric of the last election cycle to point fingers too. So I think it just depends. It's not as smooth as we like it to be for
I
the
understand.
community, but I think you're going to have that all the time.
So I want to get a sense from you as to why you're here today. You're a busy man. There's no doubt there's a lot going on in your county. And so why was it important for you to attend a convention like this, the CSAC
well,
convention?
I'm not doing all 4 days here. I just
Right,
have
well, it's all good though. You're here.
Yeah,
You're here.
my one day, because I love these to get other ideas from the county.
Right.
So why reinvent the wheel that someone else already perfected? I'm here to share some of my ideas. We talked about before about FirstNet.
Right, and let's talk about that, because I wonder, have folks spoken to you about safety in the wake of your December 2nd tragedy? But tell me more about FirstNet and what FirstNet is, the speech
Sure.
you plan on giving.
I get to speak to my colleagues in different counties. FirstNet is coming out as a derivative of the 9/11 incident. Basically, we had a lot of public safety come together and can now talk on voice communications. So they want to add a data element to just like our smartphones, so
Okay.
people can communicate with their smart devices, and when it comes together for public safety, primarily for public safety. But I'm hopeful that we can expand that use for education, public health, and other instances where we can bring services to our residents via the internet.
And what did you learn about the communications world in the wake of December 2nd? Because as I understand it, actually communications was pretty strong on that day. So I'm sure that was gratifying, but were there lessons that the county could take away from December 2nd to improve communications as you look at FirstNet?
Well, I think not just communicating between first responders, but also the backup material. So as you have digital files, whether that be medical or personnel files or different building structures that you can get to the first responders at their point of contact when they need it on their devices. So if you know you're going into this building, you know the blueprints of that building, you know what kind of chemicals are stored there, all the other data that you could get. That's what FirstNet will provide in the future.
And on December 2nd, 2015, they did not have that.
No, we don't have that.
But yet the response was strong and effective, arguably.
But that is a fairly small regional incident versus the big earthquake we may have, or large fires where you bring multiple agencies from outside the region to communicate together. So FirstNet will be able to let Nevada law enforcement come talk to California. Or those type of things. So it allows that cross communication.
One of the biggest issues that is being bantied about in the halls of this convention is transportation and infrastructure funding. And there's a lot of frustration amongst county supervisors. It's being vented towards your former colleagues in Sacramento. You were a member of the California City Assembly.
I ran into 3 or 4 here supervisors.
Exactly.
Too, so.
And so, as you know, we are in a special session on transportation funding. We've been in one since you left, it feels as if, and that was 2 years ago. And we're not seeing a lot of movement on infrastructure spending out of Sacramento. What's your sense of that? And I ask you specifically as a former member of the legislature, in the leadership then, and now as a supervisor in a major
absolutely.
county.
It's a major policy change that the state needs to take. As we get more fuel-efficient vehicles, as we go to electric, you can't rely on the same sales tax you have on the gas pump as you used to. At the same time, I always advocated that you also have to work on how expensive our infrastructure is.
Sure.
So maybe loosen that up a little bit, try to get some economy of scale, other things you could do so you could cheapen per square foot and also
But let me ask you, because now, to the surprise of many, the Democrats have a supermajority in the legislature. Now that doesn't mean that they'll be able to get every person to vote as leadership may want them, but there has been a push by the Democratic caucus, even while you were there, to increase the gas tax or provide a special tax for electric vehicles since they pay no tax. I mean, do you think we should be looking at that? We haven't seen an increase in the gas tax since the 90s. Inflation, gas prices are down.
I think it's definitely something to be taken a look at. You definitely need to increase the revenues for transportation. At the same time, utilizing the revenues that we already charge for transportation are not going to transportation. Clearly
there's the weight fee issue.
80% of it goes someplace else now. So it's frustrating. I sit on the regional Southern California sandbag that looks at these issues, and most of that money's not going to transportation to begin with that we pay at the gas tank.
But since you know so much, you were in Sacramento, now you're on the Board of Supervisors, can you leverage your expertise to get these guys moving?
Hopefully. Every time you get a new election, you have new people you have to educate.
That's a good point. But with term limits maybe being extended, you can educate them.
And it is something that the governor uses to pay for highway patrol and other things. So we'd like to get all that stuff worked out.
He is Curt Hagman. He is a member of the Board of Supervisors in San Bernardino County. I'm Brad Pomeranz at the SEACSAC Convention in Palm Springs. It's Charter Local Edition.